So my friends, earlier in our service, we were privileged to participate in Jackie and Max's Ufruf. Now, I have known Max and his parents for a number of years. Elise's mom has served in the congregation on the board and has been on the exec for, a lot of years. A lot of years, and is still on the exec as a VP. And it's wonderful for me to be able to see her and to see all the hard work that she brings and the devotion and caring she brings to the congregation. Dave, however, I met slightly differently. Dave I met, don't worry, it's not that bad. Dave I met really about, and I might need a little help here from my friend Joel Meskin, about 15 years ago when we started a study group in Joel's office on Tuesday studying Pirkei Avot. It was in Joel's office when like Ventura and Whitsett. And Joel called me and he said, we want to get a group of people together and study, around lunchtime. Would that be okay? And we began that group. And that group, at the time, it was Joel and a few others, and Dave started coming to those groups. And I was so touched by his participation. I was touched by his thoughtfulness, by his willingness to engage and study the text, to take in what the tradition said, but then also to be willing to challenge it. He has a keen intellect and a great love for things Jewish, but also a great love for challenging things as well. It made our conversations so rich. It made them so enjoyable. It made them so lively. It was a pleasure to be able to share those moments with him. And it's a pleasure to be able to share the beam with him this morning as well. I'd like to invite up now Dave Gorney.
When I was confronted with the pure pleasure of being a darshan today, I looked in the book and it's Parshat Bo. Now, Parshat Bo for the darshanim is an embarrassment of riches. There is so much to choose from. You have the last 3 plagues. You have description of the laws of Passover, preparations for the Exodus. If you can't find something to talk about in Parshat Bo, you really do have your eyes closed. But as I'm reading one portion of it, I was struck by a passage that stood out because it was so simple and it was mundane. It talks about setting of a calendar. And it's kind of one of those introductory phrases, sort of like the space between the arias that moves it from time to time, that I started scratching my head and saying, this is kind of strange, because this is what it says in English. This month shall mark for you the beginning of the months. It shall be the first of the months of the year for you. And the for you is the important part, lachem, because it's repeated twice. And this instruction in Torah is given to both Aaron and Moses together. And the tradition says that what this really instructs the community to do is to establish the calendar. Now, Jewish calendars are lunar. To determine when the Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month, is, you need to actually take a look outside. You have to see how the moon is building, waxing, and waning. You have to observe from day to day to see when it starts. It's going to get small, 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 small. It's going to stop, and then it's going to get bigger. And when it starts that upward passage, that's the new month. Now, obviously, this requires a consensus, because 2 people looking at the same thing are going to say, no, I think it's bigger. No, I think it's smaller. You can see a discussion. And in the days of the Sanhedrin, there were, in fact, bringing joy to my heart as a lawyer, there were judicial proceedings. In fact, since they're 12 months, right, it means that's a gig that plays 12 times a year forever. This is called an annuity account. But you have to seriously, there has to be a decision made as to when that Rosh Chodesh begins, because it goes on to say that when and once the community establishes the Rosh Chodesh, then it is blessed. And from that point on, that's when you set the calendar. And all of the events that go forward in the Jewish community are established by the community setting that calendar. And the thought occurred to me, that's kind of strange, because think of something that happens every week that is holy. You're looking at it today, Shabbat. And the Torah doesn't give the community any responsibility for determining whether or not it's holy. It just says in the first commandments, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. It's kind of assumed that it's holy. God has done this for us. But no, for the community, for the calendar that governs it, Torah says, you all, speaking to Moses, the executive branch, if you will, and to Aaron, for lack of a better thing, the judicial system, you all have to decide this. Now, this is, from textual point of view, sort of overlooked in Eitz Chaim, but in the Hertz edition, the one we used to do when I was a bar mitzvah, it's mentioned, and in a little digging, you actually have found that the rabbis considered this commandment, this mundane, pedestrian instruction to set a calendar, as the first commandment. Rashi says it is the first commandment. Rambam, Moses Maimonides, says, no, I'm going to go with remember God. But there's this intergenerational dispute between the two as to which is, in fact, the first commandment. And I'm kind of scratching my head saying, you know what? I always thought it was be fruitful and multiply. Oh, well. A lesson that can be drawn from this is that contrasting Shabbat when it's done for you, somebody tells you it's holy, whereas the calendar is a community obligation. A lesson that can be drawn is that you are not free to defer. You may not defer from your community responsibilities to take charge of holy times, because it's not only do you decide it, once you decide it's Rosh Chodesh, you do the Rosh Chodesh and it is blessed. You are sanctifying a moment in time. And in our tradition, we make a lot of things holy, ordinary things holy. Bread, wine, we bless people, we bless events. But this is the first time in which we are actually instructed to bless, to determine and bless a starting point in time. And when it comes to time, we defer all the time. What's the best expression? Have you got the time? Do you know what time it is? And of course, somebody asked me that question. I look at my wristwatch, and Max and Jacqueline will reach for the purse or the cell phone to determine where they're going to look. But we don't actually determine it. We defer. A lesson that was learned is that you must take responsibility individually and as a community for determining the important and the holy times in your life. And this is especially important today on the Ufruv of Jacqueline and Max, because, as Rabbi mentioned, the marriage is, he hinted at it, is at once a joining of two people, but mostly important, the making of a new soul, their occurrence in the tradition. And in the context of this parsha and this community obligation to take responsibility for your calendar, tomorrow, Max and Jacqueline will be creating a new nefesh, a new life, and a new soul. And they will be taking personal responsibility for beginning their own Rosh Chodesh, Shana Chodesh, Ve'chaim Kodesh, a new, holy, wonderful life that they have chosen. And in the context of today's parsha, it is absolutely 100% consistent. So with that, I can't wait till tomorrow, and I'm going to have a good time. Shabbat Shalom.